Let's get out of our own head. Well, I shared with you the review that this is us in the book of Philippians, the early church. We're talking about how to be positive during difficult times. And it does come into the emotional space. If you want to read a book, Emotional Healthy Spirituality is a really good book. But basically, understanding that when Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, that heart, that emotional space comes with that soul, that spiritual space where we're all in one, and we know our emotions get the best of us. And then we have this world of mental health crisis, and I'm challenging you to see it differently, that we too much ruminate and give too much truth to our emotions rather than regulating them and giving them what we call the hallway experience, right? That it's supposed to move us. So let's go back to those 4 introductions about emotions, just sort of setting the tone. First of all, emotions are not of the heart, but I love her with all my heart. Well, that's really because you've been thinking about her, you have thoughts about her or him, and so that is what's triggering that emotional. It can be as much as fight or flight, right? I'm afraid in this situation, so my heart starts pumping really fast, and so now I'm emotionally afraid, and I'm going to move quickly out of that space that makes me feel afraid. Well, that's what emotions are. We're thinking about something, it triggers a physical response, and we have something that moves us. I like that illustration about emotion. It's not meant to ruminate. Emotions typically aren't meant to be long-term, right? You can't be in long-term anxious. You can't be long-term angry. It's very bad for your health. You can't even be long-term happy. I got news for you. Did anybody watch the ending of the Bears game last night? Oh, Matt. I'm watching it, and they're down 21-3, and we get to the second half. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to bed. It's not worth it. But I remember a couple of games this year that I woke up to a surprise, and I thought, you know what, the Bears are just that crazy. They're going to maybe come back, and then they came back, and they came back. And then it's euphoria. You're like, this is amazing. And then I really was exhausted. Right? You get to where you're so happy and you go, you can't stay in that space forever. So emotions, as fun as they are moving us often from one state of being to another state of being. And we want to talk about how we can value that better. They have layers. There's primary emotions, secondary emotions. And then really what I shared with you last week was the difference where emotions come in is unmet expectations. So when you're really happy, typically you're like, I'm just here. If this is what we get, it's great. We made the playoffs, for example. And then unexpectedly you go to the Super Bowl and you're like, this is awesome. I didn't expect us to do that, but I'm really excited that we did, right? Or unmet expectations the other way. I really hope this goes well, and then all of a sudden it doesn't, and you get really upset, anxious, angry. That's typically because, and we challenged last week, lower your expectations. That's usually the biggest first step we can do is stop in the world that says we can have everything at all moments, at all times, and lower it to life is going to be hard, it's going to be challenging, but let's be ready for it when it happens. So let's give you Philippians chapter 1. Last week we shared these verses. Philippians 1:6 is just a reminder we're still growing. The verse itself is that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. He's going to see it through. So no matter where you are in life, you still have your project in the making. And that's okay. So you're not going to be the most emotionally healthy, mature person at all times. Where are we still growing? And then, of course, Philippians 1:10 tells us how we can do that. Prioritize purity over pleasure. So if you get really upset because you're not pleased, play that out because things haven't pleased you. You haven't received enough things. You wish you had a newer car, better house, better life, better job, better. All right, we're in a consumer-minded space, aren't we? Our culture today thinks accumulation is happiness, and that's not what God said. God says prioritize your purity, right? And what Paul really says is what matters most, not the things that don't matter that you can't take with you, but prioritize the things that do matter. And then lastly, we said the reason that matters is because you can't take it with you. So when Paul says in Philippians 1:20, to live is Christ, to die is gain, to die is better, what we're highlighting is that suffering, when it happens, shouldn't just have our emotions go all over the place. It should give us perspective that what happens to us is a reminder of what is to come. That through suffering comes this salvation. Life is going to be wonderful, even if it's not right now. Okay, How about today? Let's get into one really gritty emotion. You guys ready to get angry? Oh, I can't wait. Anybody else was wondering, I'm really getting angry this morning? Oh, I'll tell you the things that make me angry. Anybody do laundry when you start folding laundry? The little that I do of folding laundry, I'm not going to lie, I'm not an expert in folding laundry. But every once in a while I want to help out and I'm going to fold laundry. Has anybody ever figured out why people take their clothes off and it's inside out? Just take it off right side out. How hard? It's like your pant leg. You just pull it off. Why is it this way? And then all of a sudden it's out. And I start folding laundry, and I go, okay, well, maybe one. No, it's two. No, it's every article of clothing. Okay. Love to help out with laundry, and I start to get really mad. Maybe it's not laundry. Maybe it's driving. How many of you get road rage? Yes. My younger part of the family is like, okay, boomers, old people, they drive. They're terrible drivers. Get out of the left lane. You start yelling at the other people. They can't hear you, by the way. I do it too. I get in the left lane and I'm like, get over. What are you in the left lane for? You ever do this little weave and bob where you start to get into the lane to just pass them on the right and then they decide to get over? And then as you're passing them, you, as a pastor, I would never give them a finger sign, but I will give them the pastoral stare. Even to my wife where I'm like, sit back, I'm going to give him that stare. Bill, you know what you just told me? I forgot I left my truck here yesterday. That's where it is. That was yesterday when we did all the work. Inside joke. Bill is making fun of me because I parked terribly over here with my truck yesterday when it was just me pulling up to the office with that. Yep, I did. I pulled the equipment and brought it in to do all that work, and then I totally forgot I brought the truck. So thank you. I lost my truck. Thank you for telling me where it is now. Please don't be mad at me. That's too good. Okay, so let me give you an illustration. When you get angry, you're probably one of two people. You are the dam or the wildfire. If you're the dam, you're one of those stuffers. You just sort of stuff it all down. You hold it all in. You look strong. You look like you're in control until the cracks start to break, and then it just comes crashing down. Maybe you're 0 to 60. You're that dry wildfire in the forest that just catches flame and it just becomes so aggressive, so out of control, and you go scorched earth on other people. Usually in the Christian space, we ask the question, is anger good or bad? And most people would say anger is bad, but we've got to contextualize what that means. When it's bad, it's usually because something's not important and it reveals our shallowness. I got mad at the remote control again. Has anybody just had those anger issues where you're like, why won't the game turn on? And then my wife says something that just drives me crazy. She goes, just turn on the TV. The TV doesn't have buttons anymore. You can't even do that. So if the remote doesn't work and the TV doesn't work, I can't get the game on. Wildfire, right? Anger can be bad when we have that sort of superficial. When it's undisciplined, some of you may be aggressive. By the way, if you're the dam, you're the passive-aggressive, and you might not be better off. And the passive-aggressive is the one that sort of stuffs it in until it unleashes later. The one I really want to highlight when anger is bad, this is really true of our culture today. We have a lot of performative anger. Now, most of you know this because I've said this even about watching ESPN. I just want the highlights for the games, and they have to constantly get into other people's lives. They have to make it dramatic. Why this player wasn't at the right space, headspace, why are they upset with the coach, what's going on in the dynamics, the team dynamics. I'm like, can you just tell me the stats? Tell me the game. And they can't anymore, and you know this about news. News doesn't announce the news. It announces drama, doesn't it? And it heightens your anger because that, by the way, is a dopamine hit. And when you get angry, you get charged up and it's kind of exciting. But that, of course, is performative. It accomplishes nothing. You get angry just for the joy of being angry. You don't say that, but essentially it's like going to a horror film for the joy of feeling afraid. You want that feeling, that euphoria, but you never solve it. That's when anger is bad. But anger isn't always bad. It can be good. When I mentioned the hallway effect, it can transition you. It can get your attention to turn you in a direction for you to do something about that which didn't meet your expectations. Anybody seen the movie The Christmas Story? It's one of the best angry moments. When Ralphie is tired of the bully and his glasses get broken by a snowball. And he takes on the bully. Now, maybe he goes overboard, but you learn the lesson that he's no longer going to be afraid. He got angry, and he responded to that anger. Tim Tebow, he does an interview years ago, and he speaks about the Tim Tebow Foundation. And he literally makes this statement, I was so angry about human trafficking. So their foundation now deals a lot with human trafficking. He first learned about it in his mid-20s from his father, who's a missionary, and his father, in a matter of seconds, paid for 4 girls, bought them, because he knew in the instant if he didn't do it then, he would lose them, and he decided to buy them to give them their freedom. It's one of the most profound stories for Tim Tebow, but he shares about how angry he is that people can be so terrible and monstrous towards other humans. I also share this with sports. When you play Little League club sports, I just went and helped coach the 4th graders because it was driving me crazy. Anybody go to a 4th grade basketball game? I laughed about this yesterday with Matt. And they all go in and they go, well, you can go ahead and shoot. You shoot. And they're like, okay, you shoot. And then we all put our arms up. And then you don't get the rebound. And you're like, oh, you got the rebound. You go ahead and shoot again. I'll just do it again. And then you don't get it. And you're like watching the kitchen. What do you want to tell them? Be aggressive. Go get the ball. Want it more than the other person. So in coach, I said, guys, don't be nice. Don't be mean. But be aggressive. And coaching kids to where they get angry with each other. Iron sharpens iron. You've got to really clash and have some of that. That actually will be a healthy form of frustration for you to get better at something. Otherwise, what do? We're apathetic. We're lazy. We don't care. To Tim Tebow's point, you should get angry enough to do something about it, to care. Now, the Bible gives a simple scope on anger. Slow to anger, not never. The world says, oh, let it out, just share your feelings no matter who's around. Religion says, don't suppress it, don't get angry with people. The true reading of Scripture is to just reflect with it. Be cautious with it. James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. It doesn't say don't get angry, it says slow to get angry. Proverbs 14:29, people with understanding control their anger. Ephesians 4:26-27, don't sin by letting anger control you, right? The wildfire, letting it get out of hand, but control it in a manner to harness it. Well, what does that look like? Well, we're going to talk about it in Philippians chapter 2. This is Paul showing us how anger redeemed, what it looks like, channeled into Christ-like action. How do you turn anger into action? And Philippians 2 has some really wonderful truths to it. The first one is, I want to encourage you to serve. Now, you may think serving others, that doesn't really solve when I get really angry or frustrated with the world, or it's this unmet expectations. And I would say if you redirect your anger to helping others, you will actually be surprised at how much it reduces your hostility in the world. Usually when you get angry, we do a separation. We get away from people. And if you want to be less angry, stop ruminating on it. Stop being broody about it, moody about it, and do something about it. One of the best things you could do is you can counter that and say, okay, I'm really frustrated. Let me go do something that helps others. This is what Paul says. Is there any encouragement from belonging to Jesus, any comfort from his love, any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then work together with one mind and purpose. Think of others better than yourselves. Don't look only to your own interests, but take the interests of others into consideration as well. Anger becomes aggressive when it centers on serving me, but anger becomes transformative when it becomes about serving others. See, this is what anger does. Anger says something's not right. Service says, how can I make it right? So instead of snapping at a coworker, offer to help them. Instead of lashing out at a family member, take initiative to meet a need. This is really true in sports. Instead of blaming the refs, challenge the players to be better. Refs are going to make mistakes, but it's so easy to blame the refs rather than asking the question, why don't I spend more time with my kid playing the game that I want them to be better at playing? And it won't eliminate anger, but this is a very good line. Ready? Give it a job. You can't eliminate anger, but you can definitely put it to work. Paul goes on, this redemptive church. How about surrender? Can you give up anger's control on you? And you know anger's control because you can't stop thinking about it. You're so mad. And an hour goes by. And you're like, I just wasted an hour hanging on to something. Here's the problem with that kind of anger. You can do nothing about it. You just think about it, and then nothing changes. So you're going to reciprocate that same instance and get angry all over again. When I say surrender, you're going to be amazed at how this principle lived out by Jesus is so powerful in our own lives. Let me share what Paul says Jesus did and how he surrendered in Philippians 2:5-9. Be of the same attitude as Christ Jesus. Though he was God, he did not consider equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges, took the humble position of a slave, was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to die a criminal's death on the cross. Now, I know when you hear that, you're like, yeah, Jesus died for us. You missed this whole surrender. Follow me on this. When Jesus decided that he had to come to earth as a human being, he became a human being so he would die. Came to earth, new life to give, to die on the cross to give us eternal life. Well, what was he solving? He was solving the fact that he'd given people all the opportunity to get right with God and they didn't do it. So instead of being a coercive God or an angry God who simply ruminated in the anger towards his people that we couldn't make it right, we couldn't get right with God, he said, what ultimately is the problem? The problem is the consequence of death. And if I want a loving relationship with my people and they can't follow the law and they can't get it right and they can't live a righteous life, then what am I going to do? What can I control? Oh, I can go take care of death once and for all. Jesus surrendered what he couldn't control, free will. So he circumvented the problem by taking care of what free will led to, sin and death. And in conquering death, what he could control, he fixed the problem. How about firefighters? I'm amazed when you think about a fire. Ever hear a fire alarm go off and it just beeps and it's annoying? Anybody ever been so crazy enough that you're like, I'm so tired of the fire alarm going off, you take the battery out? This is not a good solution. I'm sick of it going off, I'm taking the battery out. That's not the right, but what would circumvent the problem is finding the fire and putting the fire out. So my question to you is, what is it that you're struggling with that you can't control and yet it keeps going through your mind? You're like, what can I do? What fire can I put out? What can I control instead of being angry about what I can't control? Others' emotions. What is in my responsibility? How can I be obedient? And then lastly, I want you to celebrate more. Even when you get angry, replace anger with gratitude. And I know this can be really hard at first, but we're retraining our response to the will of God. And you can do it, and you can get better at it. When Paul says, do everything without complaining and arguing, how many is that just challenged with that sentence alone? Let me say it again. Do everything without complaining and arguing. How many of you are just going to catch people this week, and you're like, see? Stop complaining. Fold the laundry. Don't complain about it. Here's why he says that. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright stars. If you complain less, you will celebrate and enjoy life more. You'll be like the stars in the sky, full of life, full of brightness. And what does Paul say? In a world full of crooked and perverse people, let them complain. Let them be angry. Let them ruminate on those negative emotions. You pivot from them. Let them motivate so that you can shine bright. Complaining is what anger does when it feels powerless. Celebration is what faith does when it remembers purpose. Let me go back to those easy examples. I do the laundry and I complain about it. Oh, I do this and they don't make anything easier for me and they just make it harder for me. What if I just spun that around and I said, you know what? I do this for the people I love. And I can't wait till they wear all their clothes inside out because I'm not changing it. Inside out day, everybody. How about you're stuck in traffic? Oh, this is going to get you. Okay, I'm looking at you right there, Mr. I hate old people drivers. Okay? Here you go. How many of you complain when you get stuck in traffic? Why now? Why me? I got places to go, things to do. I'm so important to the world. What if you pivot and you say, you know what? Well, God, I guess you have my undivided attention. Isn't it amazing how when you're forced to slow down in life, you just ruminate with your anger rather than pivoting to say, I can't change anything. So who is in this room with me now? And especially where there's an opportunity for prayer, for a real intimate time with God and to laugh about those mistakes, shortcomings, hardships. So let's retrain that spirit this morning. I want you to do a couple of things this week. When you get angry, you are really well and encouraged to let it out. So if you're here this morning, you're like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to get angry. It's okay. But when you get angry, get it out of the system really quick. My dad, when I was young and I got frustrated that we went to so many different schools and I was playing sports and I didn't know the kids or the players, I was getting angry. And my dad, of all things, believe it or not, gave me an axe. That's a great thing to give a kid when he's angry. 14-year-old. I kid you not, he goes, there's dead trees out in the back, just go hack them down. I'm like, all righty. And it was like actually doing the carpet where you're like, we can do this. And about 3 minutes in, I'm like, I'm so tired, I can't do this anymore. But what a way to work out my aggression. By the way, when I became a teenager and I liked girls, my dad also said, here's an axe. Go take it out on the trees out back. I cut down a lot of trees. we had a lot of firewood for the winter. I remember Brody was 3, I think. Bentley's 4. Brody was 3. We went fishing, Bentley, and I had this beautiful Durango. I loved my Durango, and I had cleaned it out. I was taking care of it. We went to Sportsman's, but they got this thing where they got into anything. So I'm like, well, make sure all the worms are in the back, behind everybody, the fishing poles are in the back. And I looked at them and I said, hey, we're just driving home. We're kind of dirty and disgusting from fishing. I just cleaned the car. There's nothing in your way. Let's just drive home and not make a mess of anything. Okay, can we do that? Just sit in your car seats. You're strapped in your car seats, right? It's like the electric chair. You can't go anywhere. What could you possibly do? I get no farther than driving down to the Okanee Blacktop, and all of a sudden it hits me, literally. I just feel it off the back of my head. And then I look up, and a red stripe of ketchup is going across the ceiling of my Durango into the window. We have nothing in the car, but I look back, and little 3-year-old Brody has twisted a ketchup packet that he found to the point of exploding. And would it explode into his pants? No! Perfect streamline. Everything I could possibly touch, it touched, including my head. I pull over. Here's my point. I am wildfire. I am going to lose it. He's 3. I don't know, bro, you won't remember, but I got out of the car. I shut the door. I went behind the car about 20 feet, and I lost my ever-loving mind. And then I got back in the car, and we drove quietly home. You can make that moment about losing it on somebody else. It's okay to get it out of your system, right? It's okay to be angry, have a hallway moment. You just can't stay there. So my encouragement for you is, get it out, feel better. It truly is an emotional thing where you've got to get it out of your system. But then when it's done, pivot. Thank God out loud for the inconvenience. Yes, thank you, Jesus. Let's do this. Let me get my head strapped around what it is in front of me now that I can control, and let that anger be the motivation that got my attention. That's what we can do. And I promise you, the world will be in a better place when more Christians don't get into that performative anger, just agreeing on issues we're upset about, but really ask the question, how can we face injustice today? Am I angry enough about the world and chaos that I'm going to do something about it? And what does that look like?